G'day guys, it's a coach here, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing the latest series in Broken Realms, that is Be'lakor. Games Workshop was kind enough to send me an advanced copy. It's just hit my mailbox and I'm excited to share with you what I've learned and the observations that I picked out of this book. And much like the other videos that I've done in this series, there will be as little spoilers as possible from the lore. I'm not going to share with you what's going to happen or what Be'lakor does, but know that this will be a spoiler-free episode. And it's really just about the rules and what is going to come within the book. Now, if you're not familiar with the Broken Realms series, Broken Realms is a series of books that is the progression of the Age of Sigmar narrative. This is the third book. The first book was Broken Realms Morathi. We then had Teclis both advancing the narrative in some form of fashion. And finally, we now have Be'lakor. So we know more are coming, but this is the unique characters, both new and existing characters and how they interact with Be'lakor and what Be'lakor is doing. The book is jam-packed full of a whole bunch of things. Not only do you get story and art, you do get battle plans, you do get campaign rules. There's some really cool rules with siege battles, as well as a whole bunch of rules. So without further ado, let's look at the armies that are going to be impacted by Broken Realms Morathi, and let's see what it's going to bring to the table. So, who is impacted by Broken Realms Morathi? I mentioned this is the third book, and each of the books have had a flavor, and they've helped various factions in different sizes. Some of them have given a whole bunch of additional rules. Some of them have just given you a battalion or a bunch of artifacts, or it's just something quite small. But in Broken Realms Be'lakor, you are focusing on the story of the first Prince of Chaos. And within that, you're going to get Chaos, you're going to get some Nighthaunt, you're going to get some Seraphon, some Disciples of Tzeentch, you get your Stormcast Eternals, your Fyreslayers, and your Kharadon Overlords. As I mentioned, all rules are not equal. Some of these books have been touched with high impact, some of them have been low impact. In the book, you will get a bunch of new things like a sub-allegiance. You will get the War Scroll updates to some existing units as well as some new units. So you get some new War Scrolls as well as some new battalions. The good thing is that all of these battalions and rules are legal for match play for your next upcoming tournament. And at the back of the book, there are points for the new units. Some of the existing units as well have changed their points value, but I'll try to call that out when I can. So let's start things off with the title of the book, and that is Be'lakor, who during COVID has really hit the gym. He didn't skip leg day. He has got nothing but gains. Not only did Be'lakor get a cracking new model, but also a point increase to go along with it. So Be'lakor has moved from 240 points up to 380 points. So I'm paying more points for him. What do I get? You are going to get 6 additional wounds. He's moved up to 14 wounds. Formerly, he was on 8. You will keep the save of 4 up. You will keep your bravery of 10. His movement has slightly increased. It's moved up to 14. However, he's now become a monster. Now, why that's important is because he's now got a profile that's going to degrade as he takes wounds. Previously, when he was only on 8 wounds, you could take 5 damage, 7 damage, 3 damage. His profile was consistent. But now there will be some parts of his profile that are going to swing and change, and movement is one of those. You are going to see some other rules change. The Dark Master rule. This is a rule that is both loved by Chaos players and the bane of existence for everybody else. Dark Master has seen some alterations. So no longer do you choose the enemy unit before the first battle round. So previously you'd rock up to a table and you would make a note and you would reveal it at some point during the game, but it had to be declared at the before the battle commenced. Now, another rule as well is that Be'lakor didn't have to be on the table. So even if Be'lakor was deleted during the game, you could still activate the Dark Master. Now what's happened is, first off, Be'lakor has to be on the table to activate Dark Master. You used to have to roll a 5+ each time the unit tried to do something. So, it was a once per game thing. if they try to cast a spell, they try to move, they try to shoot, you'd make them every time roll a 5 up to see if they could do it or not. Now what's happened is they've kind of cleaned up the rules. So it's just now a flat 3+. So at the start of every phase, so when you do reveal the Dark Master rule, it's just a flat 3+. So at each of the phases, so your hero phase, your movement, your shooting, blah, 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 it's just 3 up. You either can do your stuff or you can't do your stuff. The things are a lot cleaner. And it's also expanded some rules as well. So things like denying prayers being chanted, endless spells, things that weren't in the last War Scroll, they've now been added. So you have seen probably a tweak significantly to the way you've used Dark Master, but ultimately I think it's just cleaning things up a little bit, which is kind of cool. You've gained some additional attacks through the Fell Claw and the Spear Tail. The Spear Tail does give you a Ren 3 attack as well, which is neat. He's still a double caster. He does still have his signature War Scroll in Feeble Fee. They remain unchanged. So probably the way I've looked at Be'lakor initially is that his role has changed in an army quite significantly. Previously, Be'lakor was a wonderful ally. He was a wonderful support piece. 8 wounds. He gained Lookout Sir. He wasn't a very big monster or a model, so he didn't draw a lot of pressure other than people trying to remove Dark Master as soon as possible. I mean, stopping something like Lord Croak activating and making them do a 5 up would really kind of shut down someone like Croak, for example, or a Nagash or a Teclis. Now having that flat 3 will mean that he will certainly have a much higher, I guess people are going to focus on him more, but in the same time, he does have a lot more wounds, so he should be able to be a little bit more survivable. But his role has also changed to be a bit more of a combat monster than a support piece. So when you are looking at, and we'll get to it in a minute, the legions that comes with this book, so you get this Legion of the First Prince, you're really going to be able to supercharge Be'lakor and his army. However, anyone who's bringing Be'lakor outside of the Legion of the First Prince may need to revise their synergies in their strategy. 1, he's obviously increased 100 points, but 2, just the way he's going to interact and, you know, some of those things. And I know some Slaves to Darkness players are already revisiting trying to how to use this War Scroll in their favor, but know that his role has changed probably quite significantly. Speaking of the Legion of the First Prince, so the Legion of the First Prince is a sub-allegiance that has been brought out with Broken Realms Be'lakor. So if you've been playing Chaos for a while, you may remember a supplement. I think it came out at the start of 2020, and that was called Wrath of the Everchosen. Wrath of the Everchosen had a whole bunch of additional rules for a whole bunch of armies, mostly all Chaos. You know, you had some really cool things to boost the Blight Kings. And within that book, you had 2 allegiances, one called the Legion of the First Prince, as well as the Legion of the Chaos Ascendant. So the first thing worth calling out at this particular point is that it's not just a copy and paste from Wrath of the Everchosen. In fact, what they've kind of done by the looks of it is they've cleaned up the rules, but they've also merged the 2. They've merged Legion of the First Prince and Legion of the Chaos Ascendant to get the best of both worlds. Now, you have lost some things if you look at the Wrath of the Everchosen, but probably collectively you've probably gained because it's a much stronger allegiance. Your Legion of the First Prince must be only based around Chaos Demon keywords. So that's probably one of the first losses potentially. You can't bring in your Slaves to Darkness. You're not going to be able to bring in your Mortals. It is really focused around the Chaos Demons, and that's obviously to the lore. The lore very much is, you know, Be'lakor is not a big fan of the mortal side of Chaos. You know, obviously Archaon, but it's really focused around those demons. And what's really cool is it's not forcing you to go down the route of one particular demon. So you don't have to commit to Khorne. You don't have to commit to Nurgle. You can do a really nice mixed force. And what you're going to get for this is a couple of rules. The first one is the Infernal Realm Walkers, which is going to give your army a 6-up damage prevention roll for wounds and mortal wounds. And in addition, there's one of the command traits you can get that will actually bring that down to a 5. So you can really make all of your army a lot more durable and survivable. In addition, you're going to get the Cursed Skies, which is going to synergize with your demons to allow you to bring back D3 slain bloodletters, plague bearers, demonettes, or furies. Or if you're taking Tzeentch demons, you can bring back one horror. So either D3 bloodletters, plague bearers, demonettes, or furies, or one horror of Tzeentch. And that's on a 3+ if Be'lakor is on the table during the battle shock. So again, coming back to the durability, you've got your 5+ or your 6+ damage prevention, in addition to being able to regenerate some of those demons. You've got the first Damned Prince, which has been brought over from the Wrath of the Everchosen, but it's got a big boost now that Be'lakor is, you're going to be able to reroll your hit rolls while he's within 18 of one friendly bloodletter, horror, plague bearer, demonettes. It used to be 8 inches, so you'll notice that there are some rules that have been carried over, but they've kind of boosted it. This is one of them. So basically, as long as Be'lakor is in range of one of those friendly bloodletter, horrors, plague bearers, demonettes, you are going to be able to reroll those hit rolls. In addition, should one of those demon units be within 9 inches of Be'lakor, he can also shrug wounds and mortal wounds to that unit on a 4+. So again, 14 wounds. He's going to be potentially super durable. You've got the Unyielding Legion, which has been brought over from the Chaos Ascendant side of Wrath of the Everchosen. So we've kind of, again, this whole merger that I was talking about earlier. And what you're going to get for this is if you've used the rules, basically, if you used the rules in the past, it hasn't changed actually, other than the keyword. So basically, you pick one friendly hero on the battlefield, you roll 3d6, and if you roll a 10 or more, you can summon a unit depending on the hero you chose. So if you chose for a Khorne hero to use the Unyielding Legions, it means that you summon 10 bloodletters. You pick out, a Keeper of Secrets, and you would summon 10 demonettes. It's all based on the Chaos keyword. If you happen to choose Be'lakor to activate the Unyielding Legions, you do get the choice of choosing either the bloodletters, the horrors, the bloodletters, the horrors, the plague bearers, or the demonettes, or you can choose 6 Fury as well. So you're going to get the choice should you use it off Be'lakor. In addition, you are going to get the Master's Command spell for each of the units. So in addition, all of your wizards are going to get the Master's Command, in addition to what they already know. So you get the casting value of 7. And what it allows you to do if you are successful in your cast is pick one friendly Legions of the First Print unit wholly within 12 inches of the caster, and it must be visible. Until the end of the battle round, if a model is slain in melee, so not in shooting, but from a melee attack, they can fight before being removed. So could be potentially focusing you down a much more combat-focused Plague Bearer or Bloodletter unit. Not or demonettes. Demonettes are great in combat as well. Pink horrors, not so much, but there's still a great use for it. You are going to get some additional command traits. I mentioned the Ruinous Aura, which brings your 6+ down to a 5+, but you do get a few others. The 2 other ones you can choose from is you can get a +1 to your Unyielding Legions roll. So if you want to be able to summon, you get a +1 to that dice roll from the Primordial Commander. Or you can reroll charges while they're wholly within 12 inches of the general through the Infernal Charge. You are going to get 3 artifacts of power. One is going to be a bit of a debuff, bravery debuff. You're going to be able to reroll your saves in melee. And the other one is going to allow you to do mortal wounds if you roll an unmodified 5 to hit, so a 5+. That will stop the attack sequence, but it's going to give you a bit more consistency in your damage. So, what do I think about the Legions of the First Prince? I like it. I think it's really, again, focusing you down the path of your demons for obvious reasons. And it is the best of both worlds when it comes to combining the Chaos Ascendant and the Legions of the First Prince. I know people who have been using the Chaos Ascendants are probably going to be a bit sad that's no longer available. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned that, but those 2 Wrath of the Everchosen allegiances are gone. They are replaced by what's in Broken Realms Be'lakor. You cannot use it now in match play. The next army to be affected, and probably one of my personal favorites that have been affected, is the Nighthaunt. Now, the Nighthaunt has gained 2 sub-allegiances. It was one of the only battle tomes that didn't have a sub-allegiance, and when you choose a Nighthaunt army, you're going to be able to choose either to take the Emerald Host or the Reichenau's Condemned. And that's a sub-allegiance known as a procession. But basically, should whatever you choose, whether it's Emerald Host or the Condemned, all of your units in the army are going to take away and gain that keyword. So you're going to gain the Emerald Host keyword. So what do you get from the Emerald Host? So Emerald Host is really feels to me focused around Lady Olinda, or at least the narrative is focused around Lady Olinda. It doesn't force you to take her, but it'll combine quite well. So what do you get from this? You're going to get a couple of things. First off, you get the Emerald Curse. So after armies are set up before the first battle round, you can choose one enemy hero, and for the duration of the battle, you're going to subtract 1 from the save roll that target that hero. Now, that's brutal. When you think about some of the things running around like Stonehorns, Archeon, Maw Crushers, Catacross, Star Drakes, any of those Techless, any of those heroes that you really want dead, giving it a -1 to their armor save for the whole battle is going to be awesome. Please don't put it on any of my Mega Gargants, please. The Knights of Regret is going to, another ability, is going to add +1 to the attack characteristic of melee weapons used by the Emerald Host Hex Raids. So it's going to focus on Hex Raids units, but is basing it off the back of a charge move. So you're going to have to charge in order to get that +1 attack. But in addition, you get to roll a dice before you allocate a wound or a mortal wound to your general, should they be within 3 inches of the Emerald Host Hex Raid. So on a 2+, you're going to be able to basically bounce those mortal wounds or wounds to the Hex Raid. So one of the probably the biggest challenges for a Nighthaunt player is that all of your heroes are not very survivable. They're not very durable, and when we get to one of the battalions that's based around Lady Olinda, you'll see that you're going to get this bodyguard theme. And what's really great about that is, you know, when you've got Lady Olinda, for example, she's only got 8 wounds. You can take her down quite quickly as an opponent. Being able to shrug those wounds or those mortal wounds onto a unit, especially a summonable unit like a Hex Raids, means you're going to be able to pass off damage, but then regenerate and you know, bring back bodies, whether it's going to be your Chain Rasps or, in this particular case, focus purely on those Hex Raids. So pretty cool rule. You get yourself a command trait, and the Emerald Host General must have this command trait instead of something in the Nighthaunt's book. And the command trait you're going to get is Lord of the Host, which once per battle, you can use the command ability. Basically, you can use your General's War Scroll command ability without spending a command point. So that's pretty cool, especially Nighthaunt players are traditionally CP poor, or you at least want to have as many CPs, especially to reroll those charges. Having an extra CP is always going to be good. You also get yourself a Artifact of Power, and the first Emerald Host Knight of Shrouds must receive the Artifact of Power. So if you don't take a Knight of Shrouds, you can ignore this, but if you do take a Knight of Shrouds, what the artifact does is it gives you +1 attack characteristic to the Sword of Stolen Hours. So overall, I really like the -1 to hit. I like the ability to shrug wounds and mortal wounds to those Hex Raids on a 2+. It's going to be great if you don't want to take Lady Olinda's battalion, which we're going to go to in a minute. I want to show you the Reichenau sub-allegiance as well, but you know, this is pretty cool in my opinion. But I did mention there is another choice to choose from. So the Reichenau's Condemned is the other sub-allegiance that you can choose from, or the procession, as they're called by Nighthaunt. And boy, oh boy, you know, you get a lot of stuff. I had to reduce the font on some of this. So let's unpack this. You get the Unrelenting Taskmaster, which allows you to re-roll all failed hit rolls for Chain Rasps or your Glaive Wraith Stalkers. Now, they must be holed within 15 inches of the Spirit of Torment or a Chain Ghast. So if you've got yourself the Chain Ghast, you've got yourself some Chain Rasps or some Stalkers or some Spirit of Torments, you know, they're going to start synergizing really well. And, you know, being able to re-roll all your failed hits is going to be quite tasty. But in addition to that, not only do you get to reroll your hits, in addition, you are going to be able to get a much more durable force because your spectral lure or your temporal translocation is going to gain yourself an additional D6 slain model. So, being able to bring back, especially those one wound bodies, chain rasp is a prime example. Having the board flooded or having a whole bunch of chain rasp and then bringing back an additional D6 on top of the other ones you're regenerating, those blocks of 20 to 40 chain rasp are just going to be so hard to take down. In addition, you're going to get yourself a artifact, and that is a once per battle artifact, which is the Corpse Candle, which allows you to get a +1 or a +3 to your next casting roll. Depending on, basically what happens is someone has to take a mortal wound, whether it's yourself or a unit within 12 inches. If you're, depending on who takes the mortal wound, you're either going to get a +1 to the cast, or if you take the wound, you get +3 to your next casting roll. So if there's a spell that you really need to go off, that'll be really helpful to just take a mortal wound. In addition, depending on who takes the mortal wound, you can either get +1 to hit, or if your unit takes the hit, takes the mortal wound as opposed to the enemy, you'll also get +1 to hit and +1 to wound for the bearer who suffered it. So that's pretty good. A little sacrifice is going to go a long way. You get one other rule, and that is the death comes swiftly. That's a command ability, and what that allows you to do is add +6 inches movement to a friendly chain rasp horde or a glaive wraith stalker until the end of that phase. So if you think about having to put up to half of your units in the underworld, and you've still got to put some bodies on the table, if you put yourself a unit of chain rasp or stalkers on the table, by adding 6 inches to their movement, that's a base move of 12. So if you think about that taking up board space, if that means, you're screening off your opponent, you are denying them from getting to an objective, to surround an objective, that board control can be really powerful. And then you add a run roll to that, and we are talking some serious fast ghosts here. Not only that, for me, like my opponent, I had an opponent recently who had 160 chain rasp to a tournament. So for me, I'm really glad that person didn't take this. They didn't have the rules at the time. But either way, I think if you're a Nighthaunt player, you've come up absolute trumps. You've gained yourself 2 sweet sub-allegiances, but you've also gained yourself a new hero. So you've gained yourself a 120-point hero that's going to have 6 wounds, has a 4-up save, has a movement base of 6, bravery of 10. It's going to have a shooting attack. You get 4 shots at 12-inch ranges, hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, has Rend 2 for 1 damage, has a couple of melee attacks as well. Can fly, it's ethereal, and the boost really comes in through the empowering excruciation, which, if any wounds inflicted by this model's phantasmal torture, which is the shooting attack, that 4 shots at 12-inch ranges, if they are allocated to an enemy model and they're not negated, so basically the opponent doesn't make an armor save, basically what happens is that this model is going to become empowered until the next shooting phase, and the Deathless Spirit's command trait negates wounds on friendly Nighthaunts within 12 inches of, instead of 6s. So you're basically making those friendly Nighthaunt units within 12 inches much more durable. So again, not only do you have the ability to be regenerating a whole bunch of additional models depending on which sub-allegiance, or maybe you're bouncing some mortal wounds, whatever it might be, but you've just made an even more durable, saving potentially on a 5-up instead of 6. So not a bad little support hero. The other change for Nighthaunt before we get to the battalion is your dread-sized Harridans have had a slight war scroll change. It's only slight, but it's still enough. Now, their new points is at 90 for 5 or 320 for 20. So that's a points increase of about 20 points per 5. So I think they were about 70 points before. Now they're at 90 points. But what's changed for them? There's a couple of small changes. The first one is that the Harrowing Shriek, that used to cause a -1 to hit for units within 3 inches if they had a bravery of 6 or less. And to be honest, there's not a lot of armies other than like free people and grots that have a bravery of 6. Now that's been boosted slightly to be under 7. So it's a bit of an upgrade. You've also had some changes to the Murderous Bloodlust, which used to be basically causing 2 damage if you roll the wound roll of 6. Instead, what's happening now is that on your hit rolls of 6, basically it's exploding 6s. So if you roll a to hit roll of 6, it's going to cause 2 hits, and then you do the wound sequence as normal. So any roll of a 6 is going to get you more attacks. In addition, the Slasher Crone, so that used to be reserved only for the leader in the unit. Now that's changed, so every 1 in every 5 will get the Slasher Crone. So if you took out a maximum unit, that's going to get you an additional 4 attacks. And if it's free, it's for me. But more importantly, it's going to really benefit as well with the exploding 6s to hit. So not a bad little change for the Dreadside Harridans. Especially probably the -1 to hit, moving it to a 7 instead of a 6, should mean that more of your opponent's units will be able to be affected by the -1. The last thing coming out of Nighthaunt is a new battalion. I love this battalion. Spoiler. Love it. I mentioned Alinda. I've talked about the fact that Alinda dies usually quite quickly. So the Horror Mourn Choir means that you've got to have Lady Alinda, the Mortarch of Grief. You've got to have a unit of Dreadscythe Harridans, and you've got to have 2 units of Mirmon Banshees. It is 120 points. And what you're going to get yourself is really a retinue. It's really a pretty cool thing. So basically you roll a dice each time you allocate a wound or a mortal wound to Lady Alinda. And if she's in 3 inches of another unit from the battalion, so if Alinda is near the Mirmons or the Harridans, and on a 2+, you're going to allocate the wound or mortal wound to that unit instead. So it's pretty cool that you're going to be able to have a nice little summonable bodyguard. I think Harridans are summonable. But either way, you're going to have a unit that you're going to be able to really keep Alinda around a whole lot longer. In addition, you get you're going to get if the War Scroll Battalion includes the Lady Alinda, it's treated as if she is the general, even if she's not the general. So, what it means, which is a really interesting mechanic here, and the Reichnor one kind of has the same type of thing, but it's not as impactful as the Alinda one. But what happens is Lady Alinda has a command ability on her War Scroll called No Rest for the Wicked. Now, in order to use a Lady Alinda's command ability, she must be the general. So if you choose somebody else to be the general, you wouldn't be able to use that ability. But within this battalion, it allows you to make Lady Alinda in the army use her command ability without making her the general, which means that you're still going to be able to benefit from taking a command trait and all the artifacts and all this good stuff on your other general. So not only are you going to shrug off mortal wounds to your battalion, but you're also able to use her command ability. And if you're not familiar with her command ability, it does mean that she can regenerate 1 slain model to every summonable unit within 12 inches of her. So again, I really like this. I think it's a really cool set of rules, and I imagine a lot of people who play Nighthaunt are going to revisit Lady Alinda, who previously, as an 8-wound hero, would die to a stiff breeze. Stormcast Eternal fans, you get 1 War Scroll. That's it. You get 1 War Scroll, and it's an interesting one. So you're going to get a hero that's been spoken about a lot, from Josh Reynolds through the Hallowed Knight series. You've got yourself Gardas Steel Soul, and he's made the jump from the novels to the tabletop. He is 110 points. He is a 5-wound hero with a 4+ armor save and 6 attacks between 2 profiles. Now, you're probably going to look at this and you're going to realize very quickly that he has a very similar profile to a Lord Celestant. So your traditional little warrior general that you can take. This is essentially a named character version of him, but there comes some differences. First off, He's landlocked to be Hallowed Knights. So if you're not running Hallowed Knights, you're going to lose a little bit of the synergy that Gardas is going to bring to the table. But if you're open to trying a new chamber, if you're going to try a new way to build your Stormcast, this is going to really reward your Hallowed Knights. His War Scroll command ability, Furious Retribution, can give Stormcast Eternal unit within 12 inches of him +1 to hit in combat, but it does mean Gardas needs to be within 3 inches of an enemy to activate, so it is requiring Gardas to be in combat, and to be honest, he's not amazing in combat. You probably would think he's on a 3-up armor save. You probably think he does a little bit more attacks than he does. He's not awesome, but he's also not going to die really quickly. You've got the Aura of Purity, which gives Gardas a 5+ mortal wound save, and it also gives your Hallowed Knight units wholly within 12 inches of him a 6-up mortal wound save as well. So you're starting to notice that Gardas is probably more of a support piece than he is a Celestant prime time damage dealing monster. So that when I looked at that 5-up mortal wound save, I was thinking that it might combine quite nicely with the Hallowed Knights Only the Faithful rule, which allows you to also ignore the effects of spells and endless spells. So you're likely to get quite a durable force here. And should Gardas die in combat on a 2+, he's going to be able to pile in and fight using Martyr Strength, which is essentially the same as the Hallowed Knight's command trait. Once per battle, he can use the Saintly Assault, which at the start of the charge phase, you can re-roll Hallowed Knight heroes within 12 inches of Gardas. So you'll be able to re-roll those charge rolls, which is going to be pretty cool. And you also get +1 attack for the melee weapons until the end of the turn. So, should you throw down a command point for the Hallowed Knights Holy Crusaders, you're also going to get yourself +1 to that run and +1 to that charge roll, as well as the ability to run and charge. So again, you're going to be able to get into combat quite quickly, quite easily, and, in combination with another Hallowed Knights hero, potentially do a whole bunch of damage. As I mentioned, Gardas is essentially a named character, a named Lord Celestant that is locked to that Hallowed Knights keyword. So if you are already building a Hallowed Knights list, he's going to combine quite well. If you aren't running Hallowed Knights and you're tied to another one of the chambers, you may find that Gardas doesn't have a space in your list, and you're probably better off choosing a normal Lord Celestant who doesn't have his command trait and is, all of those things locked because they're not a named character. So, but hey, man, this model is so awesome. It reminds me of a Marvel superhero. It reminds me of Captain America jumping from a building and just it's great. I love it. I love the model. If you're a Tzeentch player, you've gained yourself a battalion. So you've gotten the Blazing Cavalcade, and what you're going to get for your 150 points is a little bit pricier than the others, but you're going to get yourself, in order to take the Cavalcade first, you need to get yourself a Fate Skimmer Herald of Tzeentch on a Burning Chariot. That is a named character, by the way. You can take 1 to 3 Horrors of Tzeentch units, but it must be a combined model count no higher than 30 models. So it could be 3 units of 10 pink horrors. It could be 1 large unit of 30. Whatever it might be, there can be no more than 30 models in your pink, blue, or brimstone choices for the battalion. As I mentioned earlier, it is a named character, so it means that you're not going to be able to customize it as you normally would with a generic Herald of Tzeentch on a Burning Chariot. And the battalion is locked to the internal conflagration. Bit of a tongue twister there. So you are locked there to that sub-allegiance. You must take the internal conflagration. What you're going to get for that is you're going to get the Gleeful Immolation, which gives you +1 attack characteristic of melee weapons used for units from this battalion. Now, they must have made a charge move in the same turn. So +1 attack, should you charge. This is going to really reward you, in my opinion, more for the Fate Skimmer than your horrors. Yes, you can charge your horrors, but to be honest, your pinks, certainly, and your blues and your brims to a lesser extent, but building around a combat-focused pink horror unit is probably not going to be high on your tactics list. But if you do find yourself in that situation, it'll be nice to get +1 attack because their melee profile isn't the greatest. But one of the other cool things you're going to get yourself, or one of the things, actually, it's not even that cool. It's actually quite the opposite of cool, is that if you are using the Gleeful Immolation, it means that you can't use the reckless abandon agenda. You can't complete the agenda with this unit. So you're going to have to use reckless abandon from somewhere else if you want to complete that agenda. You're also going to get the Opus Infernus, which is going to give your Fate Skimmer of Tzeentch the Firestorm spell. That Firestorm spell is coming from the Lord of Change, and that's traditionally quite a high spell to cast. That normally casts on a 9, but through the Opus Infernus, you are going to get +2 to the cast. So it's going to make it a little bit easier to cast. It's bringing it down to a 7, and it's going to do D3 mortal wounds for each 6. So I think you roll 9 dice, and you roll 9 dice, and any 6s do D3 mortal wounds. So nice character sniper, could whittle down a unit. Not a bad spell, but it is a little bit harder to cast. But as I mentioned earlier, the battalion is landlocked to the Eternal Conflagration, which means that your allegiance abilities are going to focus very much on your missile weapons. So I guess if you think about this battalion coming into play, it is focusing a little bit on magic. It's also focusing a little bit on combat. It's a bit of like a 1-2 punch if you're going to build around this. You're going to get your magical flames from the horrors. That's going to come from your Internal Conflagration. It's going to improve the rend by 1. So it means that you're also going to cause -2 bravery using the command ability. You then shoot them. Then you charge, you get yourself the +1 attack, and you finish off the unit. And hopefully, in combination of the shooting and the melee, you're able to build quite a powerful, Horrors of Tzeentch unit. Not bad. 150 points. I guess being locked to the Internal Conflagration though may make it hard. You may find that your points are going to more things like flamers or other types of units as opposed to building around the Horrors of Tzeentch. And obviously the benefits primarily being around the +1 attack in melee. So it's kind of doesn't quite gel, but it does give you more options instead of putting all your eggs in one basket when it comes to shooting. Another army that got more than one actually. This one, I kind of lie there. So Seraphon are going to get themselves 1 battalion and 4 extra endless spells, kinda. So you've got yourself the Celestial Stampede. I love this so much. I've gone out and bought 2 of these box sets. So the box sets are pretty sweet. You get yourself a Stegodon with a Skink Chief, get yourself an Engine of the Gods or a Stegodon, and you get yourself a Bastiladon. The Stegodon with Skink Chief is a named unique character. So again, that locks you with some of the choices you can make being a unique named character. And you must be Thunder Lizard. So you're forced to the sub-allegiance of Thunder Lizard coming out of the Coalesced. You can't be Starborn. You've got to be Coalesced. And what do you get with that? By the way, Thunder Lizard's great for this because Thunder Lizard gives you +2 wound characteristic to your Thunder Lizard monsters. So those Bastiladons, Engine of the Gods, your Stegodons, they're all getting +2 to their wound characteristic, which is just great. It works quite well with this. But in addition, you're going to get the Prime War Beast. So you add +1 to the attack characteristic of a weapon used by the General's mount. So that's going to bring up your Massive Horns to 3 attacks, your Grinding Jaws up to 3, and your Crushing Stomps anywhere up to 6 attacks, depending on how degraded the profile is. You're going to get yourself, and the big benefit here as well is going to be this Lance of the Cosmic Power, which once per battle at the start of your next shooting phase or the start of your shooting phase, you can say that the battalion is going to use the Lance of the Cosmic Power. If you use the Lance of the Cosmic Power, you can't use the Engine of the Gods Cosmic Engine roll. So if you have other Engines of the Gods, you can absolutely do it. But in this particular battalion, you couldn't use that in that once per battle situation. What it also allows you not to use is the Trove of the Old One technology, and that's the command ability that is coming with the Thunder Lizard. But if you use the Lance of the Cosmic Power, what it does, it allows you to pick one enemy unit within 24 inches of your Stegodon on Skink Chief, your named character, and you get to roll 1 dice for each engine of the gods in the battalion within 24 inches of an enemy, and 2 dice for the Bastiladons with the Solar Engine. So it's rewarding you to take the Solar Engine, not the snakes, whatever it is, the other build, but everyone takes the solar engines. But it's going to reward you to take the solar engine, and again, 24 inches from an enemy. So you roll a dice for 1 or 2 dice, depending if it's an engine or a Bastiladon, and for each 2+, you're going to suffer D3 mortal wounds. So you are sacrificing the engine of the gods engine roll in one of your turns. And you can still shoot with your Bastiladon, but for me, I really like it. The Trove of the Old Ones allows you to double shoot. So there's one particular turn you're not going to be able to double shoot using that command ability. But overall, it wraps up quite well should you be going down the Thunder Lizard route. It is very different to, say, Lord Croak and his friend build from the Starborn. And if you're looking for something with a bit more variety, and this is a different style of competitive, it's not as easy as the other builds, but certainly probably a much more. I mean, who doesn't want to run dinosaurs around the table? This is great, and it synergizes quite well. And the other thing you're going to get through the Seraphon is you're going to get yourself bound endless spells. So already in your Seraphon battle tome, you're going to get yourself bound endless spells based on malign sorcery. Bound Balewind Vortex, bound Geminids, bound Purple Sun, bound Quicksilver Sword. You get the point. There was another 4 endless spells that came out of Forbidden Power. It was a supplement. I think it was in 2019, maybe even 18. I think it was 19. And that brought 4 additional endless spells to the table that anyone could choose. You could take the Horrorghast, the Uber Driver or Lachlan, the Soul Seeker, the Shards, and you've also got the Soul Scream Bridge, or just as known as Bridge. But basically what's going to happen here, folks, is that Seraphon can now take bound versions of that. And what a bound version is, you can see it on the screen right now, but essentially it means that only the Seraphon player can move or interact with the bound endless spell. So the Horrorghast for 60 points is going to cause -1 or -2 bravery to the opponent, depending on if they're within 6 or 12 inches of the Horrorghast. Our Uber Driver, Lachlan the Soul Seeker, for 70 points is going to pick up a unit within 3 inches of it and move it up the board. You will have to sacrifice 1 model to be slain, but essentially it's a nice little cheeky teleport. The Shards for 40 points is going to be able to halve a movement characteristic of your opponent, which is brutal. This game is one off movement, so being able to halve an opponent's characteristic is going to be nasty. And in addition, you subtract 1 to the hit rolls for whoever it passes over. So the Shards must pass over a unit, but then you're causing -1. And knowing that it can't come back to you because it's bound, very, very, very generous for 40 points. And then the Soul Scream Bridge, I don't know how many Seraphon players are going to take the Soul Scream Bridge, but if you do so, it does allow you to teleport so you set up one of the bridges, and you can basically the 2 bridges have 12 inches between them, right? So you set up one bridge, and then the second bridge is set up 12 inches, wholly within 12 inches of the first. And anything within 6 inches of that first bridge can teleport to the other bridge. So if you have a nice little combination, you've got yourself, let's say, Croak and Friends. You got your you got your Ashlith Bearer, you got Croak, you've got the Eternal Guard, you've got a whole bunch of peeps helping Croak. You could teleport literally all of them with 1 endless spell across the board. So it's great for anything with synergies or you're requiring a certain thing. And because it's a setup, you may get rewarded. Well, like for example, you might teleport a bunch of salamanders, whatever it might be. Either way, it's there. 110 points is quite expensive, though, in my opinion. If you're Kharadon Overlords, you've got yourself a couple of things. First off, you got yourself some additional triumphs. So you've got an additional 6 triumphs to add through the Triumph Guild. When you are choosing your triumphs, depending on what you have in your army, so your Aether Chemist, your Aetheric Navigator, or your Endrin Masters will all have access to 2 additional triumphs each. Your Aether Chemist is going to be able to extend the range of the Aetheric augmentation up to 18. So normally on the War Scroll, I think it's 12. It's now at 18 should you use this additional triumph. And if you're Barak Urbaz, you can pick 2 of your Skyfarer units to benefit instead of 1. And in addition, there's an alternative one which will allow you to re-roll wound rolls of 1. So quite tasty. I think from memory as well, you don't have to be garrisoned. So in the past, I think for the triumphs, you had to get your Aether Chemist out of the boat in order to use the triumph. With this one, correct me if I'm wrong, chat. I'm sure you're going to put it in the comment section, but you can remove yourself. You don't have to remove yourself from the garrison in order to use a triumph, which is a massive boost for KO players. Should you use the Aetheric Navigator rules, you can either re-roll the dice for dispelling or unbinding. What's interesting though is I believe you've got to declare it before you make the roll. So if you really want to get rid of a spell or an endless spell, you just want your opponent just to not cast that, or if you want to make sure that this endless spell is gone, you get yourself this once per battle reroll of a dispel or an unbind, or what you can do is you can add an additional D6 movement to a sky vessel until the end of the turn. In addition, it's going to allow you to reroll run and charge rolls. So should you find yourself grounded, you just want to move around as opposed to flying high, an additional 6 inches is going to be useful, probably especially for trying to score objectives. Though you probably want to shoot off your opponent first, so throw down the Aether Chemist Guild first. You finally got your Endrin Master, so the Endrin Master additional ones will allow you to re-roll how many wounds that your Endrin Riggers heal. So you get to re-roll the dice roll and add 1 to that number, which is pretty tasty. I think it's D3 you can heal, so it's at D3 plus 1. You can re-roll that, which is pretty helpful to keep your boats up and as unbracketed as possible. In addition, alternatively, you could use the by Grumdy, I have my eyes out on you command ability for free. That was that one. Or you can use the blow my magazine. So should your sky vessel be destroyed, and as it comes crashing down, it could do some mortal wounds. You can increase or decrease the amount of mortal wounds that the destroyed boat is going to do. So you could make it 1, D3, or D6 mortal wounds within 3 inches. So obviously, if you have a bunch of troops near the boat, you want to reduce that down to a flat 1. If you want to do maximum carnage, you're going to try to boost that up to a D6. KO players are also going to get themselves a battalion. So you've got the Aether Runners or Drongons, Aether Runners, and that is going to make you have a Endrin Master in dirigible suit, who's a named character. You got yourself 2 Endrin Riggers or Sky Warden units in any combination, and it's landlocked to Zilfin. So you've got to be Barak Zilfin in order to use this battalion. What you get from it is you get the fastest vessel in the fleet, so that allows you to add 3 inches to the movement characteristic for what is in the battalion. So that's not bad, especially if your Endrin Riggers are not hitched onto a boat. In addition, at the start of your movement phase, for each unit in this battalion, you can pick 1 friendly sky vessel unit that's within 3 inches. You can't pick the same sky vessel more than once. And you get to add 3 inches to the movement characteristic of the sky vessel until the next movement phase. So your balloon boys, your Endrin Riggers, your Sky Wardens are attached to your Ironclad or whatever it might be. That's going to give them the boat an additional 3-inch movement. So again, very helpful, especially if you're grounded because you can't fly high, you're limited movement, or you're moving up the board and you're trying to go for an objective and you don't want to be screened out 9 inches. Now, the challenge here, in my opinion, is that you are locked to Barak Zilfin. So being a general, you are going to give up your Master Commander command trait, which is going to allow you to refund those command points that you spend. Normally, you'd be able to, when you spend a command point on a 5+, you get it back. But you would lose that because if you took this as your general, so just be mindful of trying to avoid that, as well as the +1 hit with missile weapons. So if you're going to take this and you are locked to Barrack Zilfin, just make sure that your Endrin Master indirigible suit is not going to be the general. And luckily, this is not forcing you to make it your general. So, in my opinion, it's a good little battalion. If you're already taking your Endrin Master and dirigible suit, you're already taking Sky Wardens and Endrin Riggers, you might find that you don't really need the 3 inches because of fly high and things like that. But in the heat of the battle, when things are happening, you're probably going to be really happy that you've got 3 inches to move, whether it's on your balloon boys or on your ships, should they be attached. So, either way, you'll be happy to use it, but Fyreslayers up next, and Fyreslayers had 2 War Scroll changes. They didn't get any battalions, but they did get 2 War Scroll changes. So the Doom Seeker had a War Scroll change. A couple of things changed, nothing too dramatic, but the Fire Steel Throwing Axe increased its range. It went from 1 inch up to 8 inches, so it's consistent with the Grimwrath Berserker. And instead of hitting on 5s and wounding on 5s, it's gone to hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s. It's also gained rend -1. I think previously it was no rend. So not a bad little boost there. The iron, the runic war iron, now wounds on a 3+ instead of a 4+. The points changed. It looks like it dropped 10 points. It's down to 90 points now. And in addition, a few things on the War Scroll change. So you've got Oathbound. Oathbound as a set of rules didn't quite change. The first block of text hasn't really changed since the Doomseeker that you know and love, but it did gain an additional set of text. And the second paragraph says, in addition, in the combat phase, if this model is slain while it's within 3 inches of an enemy, it is sworn to destroy, and has fought no more than once in that phase, this model can fight before it's removed. So when you have sworn your grudge, when you've sworn that you're going to swore the grudge, if you haven't fought more than once and the Doomseeker doesn't die, it does die, you're going to be able to attack once more, which is a nice little boost for a 90 point. I don't even think it's a hero still, so which is great. You've got the runic power, which is consistent language. So they haven't really quite changed a lot of the rules, but this is consistent to the Oathbound. So basically, in addition to, again, the runic powers of what you know and love, you will gain +2 damage if the model is fighting when it's slain. So if it's taken damage, you already get +2 damage characteristic from its attacks. But if you happen to be fighting when you're slain, you will also do the +2 damage. So again, nice little cheap boost for no reason, but quite consistent. And you'll see actually that kind of follows over to the Grimwrath Berserker. So Grimwrath Berserker also got a small update. The Fire Steel Throwing Axe already had an 8-inch range for the Grimwrath Berserker, but it did hit on 5s, wound on 5s. So much like the Doomseeker, it hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, and it also has gained a rend -1. It is 110 points. It has lost one of its key rules, which was the Unstoppable Berserker. It used to have it. It's no longer there. But what the Unstoppable Berserker used to do is you used to be able to shrug wounds and mortal wounds off on a 6+, and you'd get +1 to the roll if there was enemies within 3. So unfortunately, that rule has gone. But in its place, you have gained a whole bunch of things. So first off, you gain the Grimwrath Oath. You've also gained some minor text change to the Battle Fury. It's very, very minor. It's very similar to what we just talked earlier about with the fighting again before you die. Wouldn't worry too much. It's a nice little boost, not game changing. But you did get these Grimwrath Oaths, and at the start of the first battle round, you pick one of these oaths for the model to swear. So if you have multiple Grimwrath Berserkers, you can swear one of these oaths per Grimwrath. I don't think you can duplicate them though. So if you take like 4 Grimwrath, you can't. If you take 4 Grimwraths, I don't think you can take all 4 of them to have the same one. Now you'll see here that there's a whole bunch of things you can get. You can get +1 to hit and +1 to wound and +1 damage if you're targeting a priest that isn't a Fyreslayer. So I think Cauldron of Bloods for Daughters of Cain might have a priest on top from memory. Could be a bit tasty. Anything there's a priest that's not a Fyreslayer priest, you could do some serious damage to. You're going to be able to run and charge and re-roll the run and charge rolls. That's one of the different oaths. Another oath is if a model on a hit roll of 6, you're going to be able to add 1 mortal wound in addition to the normal damage. You're also going to be able to add +1 to hit and +1 to wound for attacks made while they're within 12 inches of a friendly allied unit. I think that's a really interesting one. I don't see a lot of Fyreslayer units having an ally. I'm not sure what allies you'd be bringing in, but should they be within range of an ally 12 inches, you get +1 to hit and +1 to wound, and there are 2 others to choose from. So either way, some interesting additional mechanics to customize your Grimwrath Berserker. But overall, what do I think? Look, again, from someone who is enjoying the lore, who has been playing Age of Sigmar for a while now. We had Soul Wars, the Soul Wars battle between Nagash and Sigmar, and obviously, the impacts of the Necroquake. That all came about in 2018, and the story hasn't really evolved a lot since then. So if you're someone who loves to look at art, looks at lore, who really wants to really understand where the game is going, this is a great book. Really enjoy the book. If you are a Fyreslayers or if you are a Stormcast Eternal player and you're like, I got 1 War Scroll and it's on the Games Workshop website, if you aren't someone who's a big lore fan, then you probably don't need the book. It's a great book, don't get me wrong, but you probably wouldn't buy it for 1 page. The Nighthaunt and the especially Be'lakor as well, your Legion of the First Prince are going to really benefit from the rules, in addition to, again, the lore, the stories, the campaign rules, the siege battles, all the cool stuff that comes with this book. But as I would always mention, the FAQ is always going to determine what this is going to look like for match play. Some things might get tweaked, some things might get added. We've seen alterations through the Broken Realms series where rules have been added as well as rules have been modified. So we'll do some proper list tech discussions 4 weeks after it hits the shelves, which is the current FAQ cycle. But I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know what you think in the comment section on how you think this was, and like how your army or how your army builds or your things that you're thinking about. How are they being impacted? How has Be'lakor, if you've been running Be'lakor in your chaos lists, how has this impacted your lists? If you are a Nighthaunt player, which of the 2 sub-allegiances are you more drawn to, the Emerald Host or Rakenor's Condemned? If you are a Hallowed Knights player, how are you thinking about Guard of Soul? And if you're someone like me who's building around the Steggies, tell me what your list is looking like. I've been playing around with a few lists, and I'd be curious to see what your list look like compared to mine. I hope you found that discussion valuable. If you did, give the video the old thumbs up. And if you have a comment or an insight, leave it in the comment section below. The champions over here are my AOS Coach Patreons and YouTube members. So you guys are bloody legends. Thank you for all the support. If you want to know more about the support programs, the links are below down here in the episode description, along with a link to the Discord server so we can continue this conversation. Until next time, don't forget to name your characters and have a good one.